You're listening to the AMB network. The future now.
The last 24 hours have been the bloodiest in Ukraine's history as an independent nation. The health ministry has confirmed that clashes between protesters and security forces have left 25 people dead. Now, among that number is 9 policemen killed by gunshots. Alexei Yarashevsky has the latest now from the Ukrainian capital.
If you want to see what hell on earth looks like, you just look at Kiev's Independence Square right now. It looks like a boiling pot over there with the Independence Square burning, tires, wood planks and everything the protesters had in store. They've lit it on fire and it's burning. It's been burning overnight. Moreover, behind this cloud of black smoke over there is the building which has formerly been the trade union headquarters in Kiev. Now it was, for the past 2 months, it was the revolution headquarters with the opposition parties having representation there. It's almost completely burned down, and now there's information that the stories of the building are collapsing, so the building may go down any minute. So obviously this is very serious here. We haven't seen any actual attempts by the police, brutal and violent attempts by the police to disperse the protesters, although flashbangs and different sorts of projectiles are exploding even as I speak right now. The protesters are hurling Molotov cocktails and rocks back at the police. They are in defiant mood as ever, unwilling to leave the square, even after the speech by President Yanukovych, who is calling for a sort of compromise, who is calling the sides to reconcile and said that there is still time to find a peaceful solution.
I have made a strong appeal against resorting to radical action, but I wasn't heard. I repeat it once again and call on you. It's not too late to stop the conflict. It's not too late to save Ukraine.
Definitely, it's an unprecedented situation here in Kiev. After what seemed to be a compromise, after what seemed to be some sort of a strive towards peaceful solution, the streets are again dominated by violence. We certainly don't know where it's going to go, because the opposition and the president met during the night. They held more than 2 hours of talks and came to nothing, no solution, no compromise. In fact, Yanukovych told the opposition, according to some of the leaders, that they need to vacate the Independence Square. Only then some kind of talk may happen. Earlier during the night, I went into the thick of what was happening there, and I filed this report for you to see.
Just when everyone thought things were going to calm in Kiev, it is on fire again. The police are just behind this fire barricade, and they're moving in on the protesters. We can hear flashbangs exploded all the time. Rocks and Molotov cocktails are thrown at the police all the time. This is the pile of rocks, which is the protesters preparing to hurl at the police. Pretty much the scene which we have been seeing over the past several months, just a few meters from here at the governmental quarter. The governmental quarter itself is totally blocked right now. You can't get in because it's cordoned off by the police. They are storming the Independence Square, the famous Maidan. They're pretty much all over the place. This new mayhem started after the opposition organized the so-called peaceful march to the parliament, and after that things went violent. It's still unclear who initiated those riots, but this has been pretty much the scene of Kiev on Tuesday. Explosions, fire, total mayhem. The whole scene is cordoned off. Now the government of Ukraine has imposed a curfew that no cars can get inside the city by after midnight. And so far, to be frank, we haven't seen major violence coming from the police over the past several hours when they moved in to the square to reportedly disperse it. But right now it's very, very loud. The barricades have been dismantled just over there. The barricades which have been here for more than 2 months. Another barricade on that side over there has also been dismantled. So nobody knows where it's going to go. It's pretty much a monkey with a grenade situation.
RT's Alexei Yarashevsky there, keeping all of us up to date from the very latest from Kiev. He's also posting video here from the center of the protest inferno, doing so, though, on Alexei's Instagram page. The police lines are just 20 meters from where he took this video right here on his mobile phone. So you can follow Alexei Yarashevsky for more first-hand videos directly from the front line. In the meantime, there have been accusations flying left, right and centre about live ammunition being used by both sides. Well, so far we have seen pictures showing some protesters with real guns. There are camouflaged men allegedly firing live ammunition there. The rioters are also attacking police with showers of Molotov cocktails and rocks. And this is the moment right here that protesters rammed a truck into the police. A foreign affairs expert, Nebojsa Malic, who says those behind the protests are deliberately ramping up the violence.
I think this was a planned escalation. This was a planned push that people behind the demonstrations and behind the protests organized in order to push the government into finally capitulating. The demonstrators have always refused to take yes for an answer. No matter how hard the government tried to appease them, they've always pushed for more. And I think this was a part of another push. They're going for broke. They've been out there for 3 months now. They need to show some results, and they've decided that it's either going to be victory or death, and they don't really care who lives or dies in the process.
All right, let's look back at how the situation unfolded in Kiev on Tuesday when violence returned to the Ukrainian capital. First, the opposition rallied the crowds and urged them to march on parliament. Yeah, the trouble began when radical protesters actually broke through the police lines. The situation escalated even further when rioters tried to storm the office of Ukraine's ruling party, setting it on fire. Police then struggled to contain the thousands of protesters throwing rocks and Molotov cocktails, some even using trucks to break through the security barriers as well. 3 people were killed, becoming the first victims of the street violence, which continued to escalate. And then, just less than 2 hours later, a police officer was killed when protesters attacked security forces. Now, Western governments, which have been very supportive of the Ukrainian opposition, are calling for an end to the unrest, and they're putting the blame largely on the authorities. U.S. Vice President Joe Biden has phoned President Yanukovych and told him to pull back government forces and exercise restraint. Another statement from the White House urged the Ukrainian leader to take steps to resolve the crisis. Sweden's foreign minister warned the EU is ready to retaliate and punish anyone they believe is responsible for the violence in Ukraine. And as RT's Gaine Chichikan reports, outside involvement goes way beyond statements that keep on echoing, calling for peace.
From their podiums, administration officials say it's up to the Ukrainians to decide their future. But the work that they do behind the scene does not look like they want to leave it to the Ukrainians to decide. Moreover, it seems Washington doesn't even want to leave it to the opposition to decide on its future. In the leaked conversation between U.S. Assistant Secretary of State and the U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine, they were talking about who of the opposition leaders should be in the government and who should not. Here's a bit of that conversation.
The Klitschko piece is obviously the complicated electron here.
I don't think Klitsch should go into the government. I don't think it's necessary. I don't think it's a good idea. I think Yats is the guy who's got the economic experience, the governing experience. What he needs is Klitsch and Tony Book on the outside. He needs to be talking to them. So that would be great, I think, to help glue this thing and have the UN help glue it. And, the EU.
The context of the conversation suggests that they're talking about managing Ukraine's opposition leaders, sort of handling them and moving fast before those leaders figure out on their own what to do. And the opposition leaders have certainly been looking to the West for support, not just Washington. 2 opposition leaders, Arseniy Yatsenyuk and Vitaly Klitschko, just got back from Germany, where they met with the German leader, Angela Merkel, and discussed Ukraine's political future. These kinds of meetings, of course, bolstered the opposition's profile. And in a chaotic environment, many things become possible. Opposition leaders know that, and at the moment, it may not be in their interest to really try and lower the temperature, the violence on the streets of Kiev.
Meanwhile, the unrest has also spread to regional centers in western Ukraine. Rioters have been seizing local government buildings and police stations in the cities of Lvov, Ternopil and Ivano-Frankovsk as well. In Lvov, the regional prosecutor's office, that was torched by radicals who earlier broke into the building and then went quickly to burn criminal files. And around 2,000 stormed an internal ministry security base there, with 30 members of the military being really badly hurt as well. Well, Andrew Craig researches the work of U.S. government NGOs in countries like Ukraine. He says they are continuing their long history of meddling behind the scenes.
There's a long-standing effort of democracy building, and often that involves things like free press and voting reforms and things like that, and that's part of it. But also part of it is more representation for those parts of the Ukraine that want a more independent status, or even influence over the government, as Ambassador Nuland said. But those demands, those requests by the Western government have to be looked at, that it's almost contradictory to be orchestrating changes in another sovereign country while saying, we are in favor of democracy.
Now, there are also reports coming in that a local journalist was among those killed in the clashes, allegedly dying from a gunshot wound. And some of the footage emerging from the street violence in Kiev demonstrates the confused situation there. It's difficult to work out just who the people in uniforms are right there, but they are attacking what's presumed to be Ukraine's policemen.
Welcome to the Potter Blog site, February 18th, 2014. A very weird, very concerning, and now very deleted radiation report out of New Mexico. And if this report is to be believed, the levels of plutonium that have been detected are indicative of basically either a fire or an underground explosion. Now, the report was of a plutonium reading in excess of millions of disintegrations per minute per square centimeter. Now, the units on this reading indicate it's a surface swipe. The reading report came from a Twitter user, goes by the name of Pair of Deuces. That individual has now deleted all information associated with it. And we have some reason to believe that there's credence to what this person has said, but we also have some indications that we don't actually trust this person. They may not be completely trustworthy. It falls into the category of person who might actually have information and might be willing to share it outside of the need-to-know limit of people who they're supposed to share it with. So it's a very interesting situation, especially since it points, the values given point to nuclear fire of some sort. Now, we put that on top of this report in the LA Times, Los Angeles Times, where it quotes an individual as saying, possibility, the radiological process inside a container that forced material out. Well, what could that be? Well, obviously that could be a fission event. It could be radiological heating caught something on fire, but it connotes fire, explosion of some sort, just very mealy-mouthed worded as to not induce fear. There's also another very interesting report that came out in the current Argus today, and it was done by a reporter named Zach Ponce. Now remember that name because I'll show you that name here again in a moment. But this report goes on and basically discusses an engineer named Russell Hardy, who's director of Carlsbad Environmental Monitoring Research Center. Apparently this group has an airborne monitor outside of one of the exhausts at this waste isolation pilot plant out there in New Mexico. And every day in the morning they go out and collect filters and take readings. They've stopped him from doing that. And here's a quote from him. It's my understanding that at some point in the near future we will be allowed to collect our filters, and at that point we'll be able to do our analysis. It's very interesting because the DOE supposedly has claimed there is no surface contamination. Everything's down inside the